about 32 aspects of the same reality. 32 ways that it can be quantified. These 32 are at the root of creation. And so today we're going to learn how these 32 together create what's known as the tree of life, the Chaim. The tree of life is the real wisdom, the truth of what life is. And the tree of knowledge of good and evil is all other ways of thinking. Because only in the truth is nothing left unknown so that evil can fester there. So when the language quantifies the truth, then we have protection against the demons. Who are the demons? The ones who don't represent the truth. So to the extent that we don't know the truth, the demons are playing games with our minds because we think something, but it's not real. And based on that, we are moving, we are talking, we are thinking. We are living a life based on something that is not accurate. And of course, we do a good calculation, but the result is still not accurate because the calculation is relying on something. And so the way of the truth, the wisdom, the Chaim, the tree of life, is know the nature of this movement so that you don't create the wrong movement. Know how to get along with this movement so that the name can be accurately reflected in you. And then we will say that you have Ruach HaKodesh, you have the Holy Spirit. You're clean, you're pure, you're exactly the way that you were designed to be. Your heart is accurate. Leif Tor Broli Alehim, create for me an accurate leiv, a heart. What is a leiv? A 32. Create for me harmony between my 32. Veruach nochen chadash bekirbi. Then the accurate spirit can be renewed within the body. If the 32 are not getting along, there cannot be an accurate spirit. And so the 32, they represent the forces that give form and shape to the movement. The one that is behind all movement is coming into movement through these forces by taking on these forms, these intelligences, these powerful beings that emanate like the stars, like the sun, but not in the physical realm like the sun. The sun is a demonstration. The sun is a metaphor. But forces that are like the sun, but spiritually. And based on their rays, the physical becomes. The physical is a reflection of the rays of a spiritual sun. What does it emanate? Intelligence, life, will, joy, pleasure, desire. They're all the same thing. All the negatives that are the opposite of these things, they don't really exist. They get created when there is a lack of these things. Where there's a lack of life, we call it death. What is death? Death doesn't exist. Death is just the lack of life. Ignorance, it's not a real thing. It just means there isn't intelligence. There's a lack of something that is supposed to be, because the big sun is emanating it. But somehow in this vessel, it's not getting through. The message is not coming across. There's less than should be from this powerful juice that keeps us going. It comes out in many dimensions. How many dimensions does it come out within the body? 32 dimensions. And so these 32 create the Chaim, the tree of life. And then these 32 are represented in the first chapter of the Torah that explains creation. And so in the first chapter of the Torah, we're going to find the 32 forces that together create the Chaim. The Chaim represents the name of God. The name of God meaning, how can we identify the movement in order to learn how to get along with it and not to stand in its way, to liberate ourselves from all demons? How do we know we are following the truth? How do we know the movement within our minds and within our emotions are accurate? They're accurate, assuming our underlying assumptions are accurate. We shouldn't doubt them. They are functioning perfectly. But are they accurate given that we have lied to them? What in their movement is a result of the lies, and what in the movement is a result of the truth? And so we'll start with the list. The list of the lanes. The lanes are the aspects, the intelligences, the lenses, the forces. And so the chart is split up into 4 sections. The first section is the 10 spheres that we learned about. We had a whole chapter on the spheres. Then we had a chapter on the 3 mothers. Then we had a chapter on the 7 duplicates, and we had a chapter on the 12 simple letters. And so in the first section, the 10 spheres, the spheres are represented by the nekudas, by the vowels. And so kamatz, which is a vowel, represents keter. How does kamatz represent keter? There's what's called a rekia, a firmament. A firmament means a place where there is an intersection between worlds and we cannot see beyond. Something is blocking our view. And from there comes out a nekuda, a point, which is a desire. It's undefined yet. It hasn't yet come to Chachma. But there's a nekuda that comes out from a firmament. And so the way that the spiritual works is that the worlds are separated by curtains. And so sometimes there would be people who would know how to go next to the curtain, and they could listen to the curtain. They could know from what's in the world beyond this world, from listening. Behind the curtain. But there are like separations between different levels of beings and the access that they can have to the higher realms. And so these are what separate. And so the keter, the will, is a transition point where the divine sends forth instructions in the form of will that then is going to lead to the chachma, the wisdom that's going to reveal that will, and the bina, the understanding that's going to give form to that will, and then will come the reactions of the emotions. But first there is something that comes forth. So this is the crown, and this is in the name, this place where we find it is the koitz of the yud, is the top point where the yud is pointing up to the beyond. And so that top point represents this keter. One of the names it's called is I shall be, because here there's no form yet. And in the human body, it's represented in the skull. The skull that protects the brain is even more stable than the brain in its commitment to the brain. And so where's the most stable place of your brain? Your skull. It's the brain in the sense that this is the case of the brain. This is all it's here to do, is protect the brain. But the brain has all kinds of movement and changes. The brain is already tied into to what's going to happen to you. But the skull is united with the will of your existence and constantly protects the brain regardless of what is happening in it. And so the skull, which is the beginning of the being, which is the highest point of the being, is represented in desire, which is the beginning of a process. Desire can be caused by something we want and something we don't want. A desire to be removed of something is also a type of desire. But desire is at the beginning of movement. And so here we can organize the order of these entities, intelligences, according to each organ. Every function in the world somehow is organized based on these intelligences. But here we're going to talk about the brain and how it balances perception. And so from this context, we would say that a neuron, which is a force of life, a desire of life that's just up physically, is the keter. It's the root of movement that is going to decide what perception is going to be like at the end of a process. And so here the neuron is the beginning of that process. The second line is patach, the next vowel. Patach means this dot of wisdom that was received is going to be opened and revealed. And so from the nekuda is going to become a new rekia, a new firmament. There's more if people need. We can hand out from here. So patach represents chachma. Chachma opens up this dot and makes it revealed. And this is in the letters of the name. Chokhmah is represented by the Yud. One of the names of Chokhmah is Ya. Ya, when we call out to the wisdom, we call out to Ya, to the force that animates the world in an order. And it's represented by the brain, which is within the skull. The brain is the revelation of that will. And in the process of creation, from the desire comes a thought, comes perception. And in the process of the neuron that's going to create perception, Chokhmah represents the information that is being processed. The neuron has a life force, has something that directs it, and then there's information that it's going to process in order to decide how to reveal itself. What does perception need to do next? All this is happening faster than the blink of an eye. In order for me to say what I'm saying, this happened millions of times. And I'm not aware of it happening. Yeah, it's happening to me. I'm not happening to it. It's telling me how I'm going to move based on these individual neurons and the intelligence that they have to convert information into perception and into an experience. This is constantly happening in a cycle, much faster than the speed that we can process. So when we get the processing, it seems flawless. It seems like, oh, now I'm thinking. Well, are you thinking, or is it thinking for you? And it's telling you the results. And so this is the secret sauce. This is the formula that we're trying to get closer to. What is the it that is thinking for me? And so this is the level of information, chachma. The next vowel is tzerei. Tzerei is the third of the 32 paths, and it represents bina, understanding. Understanding means the information becomes personal. Chachma was information, all the information. But who am I? Who is looking at the information and what do I want? Wasn't yet involved in the conversation. This happens by Bina. I hear something, Chachma. I understand it, Bina. Oh, I see a relationship between me and information. This is Bina. And so what happens there by Tzerei? It splits into two. It has a right and a left. Who are these right and the left? Tzerei represents Yetzer. It says, Vayitzer Hashem Elohim Esodam. The divine force formulated man. But it says Vayitzer with two yuds. There's an extra yud in Vayitzer. Why is there two yuds? Because he formulated man with two forces, one pulling for and one pulling against. When does that happen? By the Bina. Why does it happen by the Bina? Because until now, there was only the divine will. Now there's a personal perspective that's being added. If there's a personal perspective, is it going to be aligned with the will or is it going to be in conflict with the will? There's two dots, there's two possibilities now. And so the Bina, the level of understanding, is called the mother. The Chachma is called the father. The Keter is called the grandfather. The grandfather, he doesn't care what people do. He likes them. Because he already saw the world. He already saw everything that you can go through. He already saw that it's an illusion and people really fall for it. And he feels bad when they get it wrong. He's not angry at them. He just wants to explain to them why they're doing it wrong. And so Keter is the grandfather. He's never angry. This is who we try to wake up when we say the 13 Yid Gimel Midas Arachmim. We try to wake up the will of the Keter. They said, don't you understand that we are fools? Why are you so upset? And so when we wake up that awareness, this takes us to a different place. Then the anger will subside. If we can wake up the Keter, then the anger will subside. The Chachma doesn't represent anything strict either, but he already has rules. He already has boundaries. The Bina, she's the one who is starting to look at the situation, and soon there might be an enforcement of boundaries. And so Bina, even though she's always on our side, there's no din in Bina. From Bina, there's going to come din sometimes. She has 6 boys and 1 girl. Out of the 6 boys, one of them specifically, he comes when there needs to be some disciplining to do. He's the one that holds the boundaries. And so Bina is represented in the Hai, the mother. One of the names she's called is Yidei Vav. And she represents the heart. Understanding happens when the heart gets involved. The wisdom is in the brain, and then the heart has a reaction, then it becomes understanding. And in the process of creation, it's represented in the breath. The breath is the place where the collective meets the individual. And in the process of perception that creates perception, it's represented in the nerve signal. The nerve signal that's going to come out based on the information that's hitting the neuron. This is the Bina. This is the place where the neuron is becoming an individual force in the movement. And it's starting to create something that's going to become perception. The next midah, the next nikuda is segel. Segel is represented by 3 little dots. When the 2 dots, that is the Bina, get along with each other and decide together. that becomes a segel. This is a good situation to be in. When the two dots are getting along, things are going to be happy. When the two dots are fighting with each other, things are going to get ugly. And so the Bina creates two dots. There's a creator and there's a created. And in the created, these two dots are either getting along and creating something in the segel, or they're on top of each other in the shva. And so the segel is three dots, and it represents kindness. And it's the first of the 6 attributes that represent the Vav. And the name of this attribute is El, the divine force. And in the body, the way that it's described in Patach Eliyahu, where it gives the sphere's location in the body, it's represented by the right hand. And in the process of creation, it represents the force of unity, the force that unites, the force that makes things similar to each other so that they can get along. And here we have the different systems in the brain. Now, I'm not an expert on these, but it's just one example of how we can look at things. In general, on all these things, there are different shittas, different ways of how Kabbalah line things up. And so even more so, if we're looking based on today's knowledge and we try to correlate that to the ancient wisdom, we can't really tell the real intentions and the real meanings of the words. But just as an example, as a demonstration, all of this that I'm demonstrating now, even the Chaim itself, the Chaim, there are many shittas of how to draw Chaim and where to put the letters. And so this is just the demonstration of the concept of how to approach the world from this perspective. But the details and the ways that things correlate, there are many different ways of doing it. I chose something that will be easier to demonstrate so that the mind will be able to digest the easiest. And then from there, once we get the idea, all these details can be interchanged. And so here in this system, this relates to a neurotransmitter that is called acetylcholine or something like that. Acetylcholine. And so that is one type of movement that might be created by that nerve signal based on the information that was being processed by the neuron. The next one is the shva. Like we said, the shva is when the tzere, when the heart now has 2 positions, they are one on top of each other. And when they're one on top of each other, this creates gevura. This creates a conflict or some type of an enforcement of some type of a restriction. And this represents strength. The strength is the ability for something to operate and create energy within a specific structure, within specific limitations. And so these limitations give strength because they create direction for the force. And this is the second one that's represented by the Vav. The name for the divine name is Elohim. In the body represents left hand. In the creation process, this attribute creates movement. Any type of movement is represented by the strength to create that energy. And in the systems of the brain, it's creating adrenaline, which is what creates the movement that comes when there's fear. Cholam is the next nekuda. It represents a letter that's connected above. It's the only one from all the letters that is connected above. And this is because the Tiferes is the king. He has a crown from above, and he's going to choose between the attributes what's going to manifest. And so therefore he is called Cholam. In a way, this indicates the real process of thought, which essentially is nothing more than a waking hallucination. It's a type of a dream. But there is a way to understand this dream. This is why the ancient wise would usually know also how to decipher dreams. It's because they were using the same language that they were using to decipher their hallucination while they're awake in order to understand their hallucination while they were asleep. One might be a little more chaotic, but in the essence of how the imagination works and the symbolic language of how it relates concept to physical matter, how it interprets what's happening outside of it, inside of it, this is all using the same language that is used in dreams. And so Choyle means that the king that is deciphering which midah to use, he is going to direct the dream. Where are we going next? It depends which attribute is going to awaken. That's the direction the dream is going to go. And so behind this dream, it's very important to remember that behind this dream is a reality. The only way to know this reality is through the dream. It's not that we want to abandon the dream. We want to learn how to direct the dream so that the dream leads us towards the truth. The dream that has taken some type of an exit and has now left the truth, we need to return this dream towards the truth so that we're dreaming accurately, so that our dream reflects something real and is not in conflict with something real. And so it's not about abandoning the dream. Some go with the path of trying to abandon the dream until they can no longer remember it. But then their heart might be relieved, but their mind will never be liberated. They will never understand what is happening here because they've lost access to that language that was revealed in the dream. This is why when Joseph knows how to decipher Pharaoh's dream, he says, Isha sheruach Elohim boy, this is a man that has a divine spirit. The divinity of the spirit was demonstrated by knowing the language of the dream and understanding the world of dreaming and how we are dreaming and what does this dream mean? What does it reveal to us? This is the goal of wisdom. So Chaim represents Tiferes. Tiferes represents pride. Pride is the third one of the attributes, which is called by the Shem Havaya. This is the Shem Havaya because he's the king, because everybody is going according to him. He's the one that chooses from above to below and from right to left. It represents the torso. In the process of creation, it represents the self. And in the brain, it represents the serotonin system. And so this is the sense of stability, that it feels that it's accurate. It feels it has the right to continue its existence. It's not being shaken and woken from its dream. The dream seems to be working for it. No one is knocking on the window saying, hey, wake up from your dream. But it could be that we are dreaming together with others. That's why no one is knocking. Not because the dream is accurate. Could be we've all agreed how we're going to dream. We're all together in some type of a conspiracy about what reality is. And oh God, yeah, he's the terrible one, of course. He doesn't agree with our dream. He has a better dream that he wants us to dream. And so this system is what allows us to feel that we are accurate to the world. We're getting the right feedback. The next one is Melupim, which represents Netzach, sustainability. Melupim is a nekuda in front of the letter, meaning the future. Netzach gives us stability. It doesn't just think what will happen now. It's already concerned with what will be in the future. This is what gives us protection, so that we know when we need to hide, when we need to prepare food, when we need to know what's coming next in order to avoid any sustainability.
Oh, like shuruk.
Milipum. It's yeah. It's different between the Hasidim and the rest. By the Hasidim, it's E, like a chirik, and by the rest of the world, it's U, like a comets. And so the name for it is Havayit's voice, and it's represented by the right leg. And in the process of creation, it represents yearning. Yearning is what gives sustainability to desire. And in the brain, it represents the norepinephrine system. The next one is chirik, which is a point, one dot under the letter. And this represents splendor, glory. The left leg. It's the fifth of the attributes. It represents pleasure. The pleasure that we have from the world is a type of shining that the world shines to us. When we are feeling the food in our cheeks and in our tongue, the food is shining into our tongue. And so this type of shining, this is something that comes out from within. This is where exile happened. This is where we had weakness. It represents the left leg, and this is where the Sar of Esau had power over Yaakov. And from there comes the Gid Anoshe. The Gid Anoshe is the part of the animal that we don't eat because it's that vein that was moved. And this relates to Hoid. On this midah it says, by the time of the Charbin, Kol hayom dova. Dova is the opposite of Hoid. Dova means there is sadness. And so this was supposed to be, Kol hayom dova is, Yom is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's day. Which day is the day of Hoid in the Shemitah that we are in? We have 6,000 years, and then Yom Shekula Shabbos, 1,000, that's fully Shabbos. The 5,000 was the 1,000 after the Charbon of the second Beis HaMikdash. And the Golus was supposed to be Kol hayom dova, 1,000 years of Golus, because we messed it up, we messed up the Hoid, we didn't respect the glory, the splendor, the beauty, we didn't realize the sacredness of pleasure, so we lost it. It went against us. And then for 1,000 years we were supposed to suffer. But now we're already 780 odd years after the 1,000. Now we're not supposed to be here. We're supposed to be in a different place. Why are we here? Because we're not figuring out the map. We're not understanding what we need to do to stop this. We're repeating exile long after we were supposed to. And this is because of the lack of wisdom. When there's no wisdom, the instructions that are the sweetest thing for our soul become bitter and make our soul feel heavy. And so Hoid could turn, Hoid di nefach layla mashches, the Hoid could turn into a destroyer. If we don't have the wisdom, we don't understand the nature of what we're interacting with, we don't understand the truth, we don't understand how to avoid the demonic, how to avoid the lies that we tell ourselves. And so this is represented in the histamine system. Shuruk is the Yisoid, which represents 3 dots, one on top of the other. This is cooperation between all the levels, the spiritual, the emotional, and the physical. Through the cooperation comes Shuruk, comes the the foundation, which is called Yesod. It's the last one of the 6 spheres that together comprise what we call HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the name for it is El Shaddai. It's represented by the reproductive organs. And in the process of creation, it represents connection. The connection between the parts that are going to create. And in the brain, it represents the dopamine system, the system that gets excited when we are about to produce, when we're about to do something. It gives us the power to do. כן, כן. השם זה שדאי, אל חי זה אחד השמות שפחות בשימוש, אבל כל פעם שכתוב שדאי זה הוא. אל שדאי זה כאשר מידת החסד מתגלה בו, זאת אומרת שעכשיו הוא פעיל, אז הוא אל שדאי. אבל לדוגמה אנחנו אומרים לתקן עולם במלכות שדאי, אז זה אותו כוח, אבל קוראים לו כך כי עכשיו הוא לא פעיל. כאשר יתעורר, אז אנחנו נקרא לו אל שדאי. ובסוף העשירית היא המלכות, היא הבת. She represents kingdom. What's the kingdom? Is the human soul, the Shekhinah, the part that comes into the world in order to experience the world. This is his kingdom. And that's the last hey of the name. The name for it, for the divine force, is Adonai. It represents the production. What is the production? Speech, seed, children, action. These are all production. These are all representative of the Malchut. So the Malchut, she doesn't have any attributes of her own. She is the ability of an attribute to come out into manifestation. And so the production, for example, I'm speaking now. The fact that I'm speaking is not an attribute. But without my speech, you will not know what attribute is animating me. And my speech will reveal to you all the attributes that are active in me. And so speech itself is the Malchut. The Malchut is not an attribute. But through her, all attributes are revealed. Without her, there is no revelation. And so this is the kingdom. This is the revelation. And in the process of creation, it represents seed or offspring. And in the brain, it would represent a synapse, which is the movement to connect between the transmitters and to give over the result of the process. And so all these processes that are working within our body are working with these intelligences, and these are animating them. And they have representations in all the worlds. And so when people in the ancient times would worship the sun, their intention was that there is something that animates the sun that is alive. But they didn't realize that that thing that animates the sun is represented by the force that animates all. And so that force doesn't want to create any distinctions between what he created. He wants to demonstrate his unity. And so therefore, the appropriate worship, meaning the appropriate relationship with the force that animates the sun, is by dignifying the human form that he created us in. Just like the sun, by being the sun, represents him because it's an accurate sun, by being an accurate human, we're glorifying his name. This is what he expects of us, is to be an accurate human. And so we need to know the way that he made us to be human in order to know how to be human. His vision for us is way better than anything we could possibly imagine. And yet, to get to the vision that he has for us is going to require a very difficult process that is much more difficult than we can imagine, because it's so much better, because it's so different, because it doesn't match our expectations. Everything is on a different scale, on a different level. And so the effort it's going to take to go there compared to what we're going to receive is like nothing. But the effort that it's going to take to go there compared to the effort we are used to giving is more than everything. We're not used to giving this much. We don't conceptualize life at this level. And so to reveal his kingdom is to go towards that unbelievable goal. And then if we go towards it, he takes us to wherever we can go. We don't know where it's going to take us. He has the map of how this evolution is going to happen. How are we going to get closer to that goal? And this is happening constantly. And our programming is blocking this process. The things that we have learned that are not accurate are getting in the way of this process, of this revelation that's supposed to happen through us. The three mothers are Aleph, Mem, Shin, and they represent air, water, and fire. The air, which is what's going to be the one who decides between the different extremes, between the fire and the water, represents language. Water represents innocence, kaf zchut, and fire represents guilt, kaf choive, like we discussed. That's Lashon, Zchus, and Choive in Hebrew. And the Lashon is represented by the Neshima, the breath. Language is represented by the breath. Language is a function of breath. We use the breath in order to speak. When we speak, we're always exhaling. And it's representing the lungs in the body, which give us the ability to exhale. And it represents the respiratory system. The innocence, which is the water, the mem, represents the nerves, the brain, the nervous system. The guilt, or the fire, represents the blood, the heart, and the cardiovascular system. And so the heart, which is pumping the blood, is giving the brain material to work with that already has some conditioning. The brain is not fully free to do whatever it wants with the blood because the blood is coming already with a certain combination of chemicals of information that the brain is going to interpret now and is going to give meaning, create perception within that blood. And so the blood represents the power of the imagination. And so the power of the imagination is what pulls us to guilt. The imagination can pull us through guilt through two ways. It can pull us to the right and it can pull us to the left. It can pull us to guilt to the right when it will make life look better than it is, and then we come into conflict with life. Once we're in conflict with life, there's for sure guilt. So if it will make life look better than it is, not because that's really better. Obviously, the real better is the ultimate better, but the imagination is pretending better. And so then when the imagination becomes aware that life is different, there's a conflict that causes guilt. Or it can pull us to the left. It can make us believe that we are somehow violating things that are not really there. There's nothing to violate, or things couldn't have been any different, or we never really had a choice. And there it can put us into guilt. And so this is why it says, Satan, we need to be careful. We need to check our path from before and for after, from all sides, to see if something that is not real is interfering with us. What's behind us is our past. And so there in our past, it will usually be about something that it believes we shouldn't have done. If it's right, we need to come straight with reality. If it's wrong, we need to wipe away the guilt. And so either way, we have to get rid of the guilt, either by changing or by realizing that we believe wrong. And so that's behind us. And in front of us is the promises of what could be that maybe can't be. But if we believe it could be, then we're getting ourselves already into conflict. And so this directly affects the cardiovascular system, because there we are reacting to how pleased are we with the results of life. how pleased we are with the results of life is very much related to what do we expect of life. So if we've created an expectation that's different than reality, thinking we're making it easier for ourselves, but no, there's something in us that's going to react harshly. And then we made it harder for ourselves. And so the cardiovascular system is in charge of how much are we for or against what's happening. If someone is very much against what's happening, something can go wrong in that system. God forbid. And so the heart is the center, and this it's called Lamed Beis. Lamed Beis, it means that it's the king over these 32. The 32 organs, the 32 intelligences that are interacting, they are looking to the heart. She's going to make the choices. The next group is the Sheva Kfulas, the duplicates. The first one is represented by the letter Beis. It represents Tzedek. Oh, I didn't put the English names. Tzedek is Jupiter. And Jupiter represents Osher, wealth. In the face, in the 7 organs that feed the brain, it represents the Ein Yamin, the right eye. And in the systems of the body, it represents the digestive system, which is based in the stomach. The next one is Gimel, Madam is Mars. Mars represents peace or war. This is how it was placed. So peace when there is agreement, and war when there is disagreement. It represents the left eye. It represents the muscles, the muscular system. How's that? Ein Yamin v'Ein Shmal? The 7 organs of the brain. The brain has 7 organs, 7 paths that the soul can come through in order to taste the world. Sight, sound, smell, and taste are all in the head. And these are the organs that represent the 7. But the 7 also represent here the 7 systems of the body. We have between the 7 and the 3, we have all the systems of the body, which one they represent. And together we have the system that we're occupying. By the 12 simple letters, the demonstration is on the nerves of the head. I don't know how to do the entire body. There's the 32 paths of the spine, which are the 32 nerves. That would be wonderful to know how to align that whole chart with these 32 paths. But I don't have that here. Here I have just smaller representations, which is in the brain, we had the system for the 10 spheres of the nerves and the neurotransmitters. Now we're talking about the systems of the body. So between the 3 and the 7, it's another 10. And then we have the nerves of the head that come out from the back, from the brainstem. And they're 12. Then there's 32 that go through the spine, and together there's 44, which is the gematria of dam, of blood. And so this is the system that is carrying and directing the blood in order to create perception. But here we're up to the Madim, which is Mars, and it represents the muscular system, which is the system of movement. The next one is the letter Dalet. The planet is the sun. It represents life. It represents the right nostril. It represents bones, the skeletal system. The next letter is Chof, Shabtai. Shabtai is Saturn, represents wisdom, the right ear. Lavlav, the pancreas. It represents the endocrine system. The next one is the letter Pei for Noga, which is Venus. It represents grace. The left ear, Tchol is the spleen, the lymphatic system. The next one is the Reish, Koichov, which is Mercury, represents offspring, Zera, the left nostril. The genitals, the reproductive system. And Tov, Levana, the moon represents rulership, the mouth, the skin, the integumentary system. And so these systems together create one unit, the same way that these parts, all of them come together. This is a demonstration of the unity. When we see how the parts work together and how they're all representing the name, then this returns us to the unity and to the trust of the original settings of how we were created. And then we align with the movement. As soon as we align with the movement and we have an accurate spirit, then what was supposed to be revealed starts becoming revealed to us. The way that we were supposed to think awakens within us. And then we know things that we never thought possible. The next 12 are the 12 pshutos. So now we've had already 20 of the 32 pass, and there's 12 left. The first one of these 12 is the letter Hey, which represents Tale, Aries. Aries is a fire sign, represents the right hand, represents vision, which is the optic nerve. The second one is the letter Vav. Shor is Taurus, an earth sign. The left hand, the power of hearing, and the nerve is the vest. I'm not going to even try. It's for balance and hearing.
Vestibulocochlear.
There you go. The next one is Tuomim, is Gemini, an air sign. It represents the dakin, which is part of the intestines. And on the nerves, it represents the olfactory nerve, which is for smell. And that's the function of the body, which is smell. Rea. The next one is Ches, Sartan, Cancer, a water sign. Korkevan is also part of digestion. Leita is eating. It's represented by the nerve that moves the tongue and the throat. The next letter is Tes, Aryeh, Leo, a fire sign. The body part is Koved, the liver. The function is Sicha, talking, represented by the vagus nerve. The voice box, the chest, and the abdomen. This one is the power of this month of Aryeh, the lion. And so this is related to speech. And this is the vagus nerve. This is the known vagus nerve that is in charge of calming the body. And this is the time where we have the destruction. This is represented by the tribe of Yehuda. This sign from the 12 signs. And so it represents Sicha, it represents speech. And when this nerve is not in order, all the nerves know about it. The next one is Yud, Pesula, Virgo, Earth, representing Kaiva, the stomach, Shinas, sleep. The nerve is the oculomotor, the eye movement. The next letter is Lamed, Maznaim is Libra, air sign, represents the Mora. The Mora is the gallbladder. Roiges, anger, and hyperglossal nerve, which is the nerve for the tongue. It's another nerve for the tongue. We already had one. Nun is Akrav, Scorpio, a water sign, represented by the tchol, the spleen, representing laughter. And the nerve is the tracheal nerve, the eye movement. Samach is Keshet, Sagittarius, a fire sign, represented by the right kidney, representing thought, and the nerve for the mouth. Ayin is Gedi, Capricorn, earth sign, left kidney, action. And there's an other eye movement nerve. A tzaddik for Dli, Aquarius, is ear, regular mean the right foot. Hiluch means going. That's the function. And it's the accessory nerve that goes down below the head to the neck and shoulder. Dogem is Pisces, the letter Kuf, a water sign. Regel small is the left foot, representing Tashmish, which is reproduction, and the facial nerve, which is in charge of facial expressions, correlates to it. And so here we see the different systems and how they interact with these intelligences, how they're all expressions of these names. Everything within creation is essentially an expression of these names. So what's going on in the galaxies is going on in our bodies. What's going on in the solar system is going on in our experience. Everything is one big being that is demonstrating its power. So now we'll go to the Chaim, and we'll observe the connections between the spheres. First, we know they are the spheres themselves. The spheres themselves are organized from top to bottom, meaning there's a potential, and it's going to go through this process, and then it's going to become manifest. Min hakoach el hapoel. And this is the malchus, the seichel hapoel, the intelligence that acts, that manifests whatever instructions it got from beyond. And so when these emanations create, when they emanate their power, they come through different paths, and these paths are represented by the letters. And so the letters, like we said, are the kelim, are the vessels that are going to receive these lights. How are they going to receive these lights? Because these lights are going to travel through them. And this traveling through the vessel is what gives the vessel aliveness. And so here we have, in the Chaim, we have three different types of connections. There are connections that are connecting from the top to the bottom. They're going vertically. And they are a vessel for the light as it's coming down from a higher light to a lower light. Shva is a nekuda that represents Gvura. Right. Right. Well, you could say that. It's going to look like a Shva with a line in between. That's how you're going to find it. Right, you can see over here also the nekudas, but the nekudas, like we learned, are representing each one a different individual sphere. It's a symbol. But it has to do with the fact, for example, that when the light comes down from a higher light to a lower light, it goes through the process of gvura in order to get symptom, because it cannot be received by the lower light the way that it was in the higher light. So mashu chayav litztamtzen, something has to become smaller. So this process is a process of gvura. Therefore, these transactions are going from a light above to a light below. And so here we'll find it on this drawing, it will be blue. All the connections that are vertical are going to be of a blue color. Then there are vertical connections. There are vertical connections. Then there are horizontal connections. Horizontal connections are connections that connect the right to the left. They create balance by receiving light from both sides and connecting these two. These are going to be orange or pink. And these represent, there's only three of them. Yeah, these represent the three elements. The fire is the highest one, the air is in the middle, and the water is the lowest one. So these elements are receiving from the right and from the left. And so this also represents their temperatures. They can change in temperatures, each of the elements, and they create a balance between the right and the left. Then there are diagonal connections that are not directly connecting, but they're connecting emanations that are at an angle to each other. And these are going to be the 12 simple letters. Okay? So now we're going to try to combine a little bit what we learned on the first page and what we learned on the second page. So the first 10 of the 32 paths are easy to find. They are the circles that are the emanations. And they are going to shine into the channels that are the letters. And so these are the original emanations. These are the intelligences that we said they are beyond vessel. They are what animate the vessels, the 22 vessels. The next is the 3 letters that we just described, the Aleph, the Mem, and the Shin. These are represented by the orange lines that are connecting horizontally. The next 7 are the 7 planets of the solar system. And these are represented in the face. And so we're going to see now how they are represented. The first one, the letter base, is Jupiter. And Jupiter represents the right eye. And so the way that this diagram is organized, we see how the right eye, assuming that the Chaim, the tree of life, is a face, the right eye is on the right-hand side of the face. The next one is the letter Gimel, which is Madim, is the left side of the face. And so it's the left eye. It's the connection between the Bina and the Gvura. The Dalet, which is the sun, which represents the right nostril, is in the middle of the face, the connection between Keter and Tiferet. The Chof, which is Shabtai, Saturn, represents the right ear. The right ear is right under the right eye. It's on the right side of the face. The Samach, the Fei, which is Noga, which is Venus, represents the left ear. And so the Fei is right across from the Chof. The Reish, which represents Mercury, which represents the left nostril, is in the middle of the face, between the Tiferet and the Yesod. And finally, the moon, the letter Taf, which is the mouth, is at the bottom of the face, connecting Yesod to Malchus. And so you see the face in the tree of life. How the human face is set according to the tree of life, and the forces that are animating the face are being revealed by seeing these letters that are receiving from these emanations. And so we can't see the emanations, but we see the vessels that are receiving the light of the emanations. And then we see these vessels filled with life, and we see their function. And so from there, the intelligence can get to know the emanations, even though he's not experiencing the emanations directly, because he can only experience the vessels that are receiving from these emanations. But by seeing the movement in the vessels, he can get to know the emanations. And so the last 12 are the diagonal lines. The hand above, which represent Aries and Taurus, are the right hand and the left hand, and this is where we find them, by the shoulder blades. So now we're going to see the same Chaim, the same tree, as a human body. Before we saw the Chaim as a face, as a human head. Now, when we're looking at the diagonal lines, we're going to see how the human body is represented by the same Chaim. And so there's like two trees of life, one for the face and one for the body. And in the face is the higher chariot, the one that's carrying a deeper representation of the tree of life. In the body is the lower chariot. And according to how these trees of life can communicate and coordinate, this is going to be the quality of life in that body. So according to how all these vessels are receiving from the emanations, the accuracy of what's being received and the movement that's being created, that's going to result in the quality of life and the quality of content that's being produced by that life. And so the hand above are by the shoulders, the two hands. The Zion represents Gemini, and it represents the Dakin. The Dakin is the intestines. Here it's shown as the connection between the Chochmah and the Gvura. This might be related to the gut-brain connection, where we decide how to react to things. In Sartan, the next letter, which is the Ches, which is Cancer, represents the Korkavan, which is another one of the digestive organs. And that's the connection between Bina and Chesed. Samach, which is Leo, Tes, which is Leo, representing the liver, is the connection between the Chochmah and the Tiferes. And Besula, which is the Virgo, another is the stomach, is represented by the letter Yud, the connection between the Bina and the Tiferes. Moznaim, the Ois Lamed, which is Libra, representing the Mora, the gallbladder, is the connection between the Chesed and the Tiferes. The letter Nun, Scorpio, which represents the spleen, is between Gevura and the Tiferes. The Samach, which is Sagittarius, the right kidney, is between Tiferes and Netzach. The left kidney, Capricorn, the Ois Ayin, is between Tiferes and Hod. This is actually the location where we would find them in the body. And the last two is Tzadik and Kuf, Aquarius and Pisces. The two legs are at the bottom between Netzach and Yesod and Hod and Yesod. And so again, this is showing us a map of how the intelligences are creating the content. And this is what becomes human expression. This is the divine form of how life gets created. And so now we're going to go to the third paper, which is the first chapter of Bereshis, the first chapter of the Torah. And we'll see how the wisdom of the Torah ties in directly to the wisdom of the Sefer Yetzira. And so there's 32 times the word Elohim in this chapter, which means creation is happening through these forces that are animating the infinite divine. And so as these forces are animating the infinite divine, things are coming forth into the world, and these represent the primordial forces that we call Elohim, the aspects of the being that have been revealed through the creation of a human being. And so it starts with Bereshis bara Elohim, that's the first Elohim. And these expressions of Elohim, which are revealing some type of a mamer. A mamer means something that represents one of the principles of creation. The 10 principles of creation are all represented in ma'amorim. Ma'amorim means each time the divine said, let there be something. That saying is a revelation of a sphera, a revelation of one of the 10 intelligences that is involved in creation. And so Chazal teaches Bereshis Nama Mamer, the first Elohim that says Bereshis Bar Elohim. This is also a saying, even though it doesn't say who said, but this is a saying, this is a revelation of being that is like the Keter. The Keter is will, it doesn't have definition. So we don't yet call it saying. All the other spheres are going to be part of Vayomer Elohim. He said, but here it's Bereshis Bar Elohim, in the beginning when creation is happening. This is the Keter. Suddenly there's a will that appears. Chazal said this refers to the darkness to come. The forces, the elements weren't pure. They weren't representative of the real nature. Something was already going wrong even before man came into the picture. And this will allow man to be a partner in creation, to clean up this mess. So man comes already when there's a mess. He comes to be mevarer nitzotzis. He comes to be clearing out the mess. This is why he is created. And he fell into the mess. He became part of the mess. And now in order to clean the mess, we really have to learn to listen to the divine. We really have to learn to listen to the organs to understand their real will in order to make our way back to our original order. And so then, as this was going on, there's the spirit of the divine that is floating above the waters. Who is the spirit of the divine? This is the first time we have Elohim that's not a mamer, that's not something that's being said. This represents one of the diagonal lines, one of the 12 simple letters. They are being revealed here. And this is the first letter. This is the letter Hey that represents Aries. And so this is the beginning of what eventually is going to turn into the zodiac. And here, this first force receives its place. And so this is why we have the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh, which says, this force is the first of the 12 forces. This is the beginning. This one was revealed before there was creation. The next pasuk goes, Vayomer Elohim. Now we have a saying, a mamer. This is the second vowel. This is the second sphere called Chochmah, which is represented by the Patach. What does the Chochmah say? Yehi Or, let there be light, let there be revelation. Revelation represents wisdom. Vayehi Or, there is revelation. Vayar Elohim, the divine is mentioned again. This divine is a different kind of a divine. How is he different? He sees. There's one that speaks. There's one that has all types of personalities. There's one that speaks. There's one that has all types. There's one that sees, and there's one that does. The one that sees refers to the 7 doors of the soul, the 7 organs coming out of the brain. They are the observers. So when it says Vayar Elohim, he saw, it means one of the observing organs is observing. Who is it? This one is the base, which is Tzedek. Tzedek is Jupiter. What in the zodiac is going to come out as Jupiter. Here it's still in the letter form and it sees. What does Jupiter see? Jupiter that represents the right eye. What does it see? Vayar Elohim esoar ki tov. He sees the light is good. Jupiter represents generosity. It sees the wisdom that's been revealed and it says, this is good. It wants to share the kindness. what happens after Jupiter sees it's good? After the force that creates Jupiter later. Yeah, this is still in a place where there's no space and there's no time and there's no consciousness. These are primary forces that are animating creation from within. We're just getting some type of a taste of what we're dealing with. And so here, Vayavdel Elohim ben Or ben Achoshech, comes another force, a revelation of the Taurus, the letter Vav. The Taurus represents the left hand, and the Taurus represents listening. And so here, Vayavdel Elohim ben Or ben Achoshech, through listening, the power of the left hand discerns between the light and the darkness. What is the light? The revelation of wisdom. What is the darkness? Ignorance, foolishness. And so the ear is supposed to, the ear is supposed to learn to taste the words, to know, to tell the difference between wisdom and foolishness. And so this ear, this force comes in to distinguish. The next pasuk, Vayikra Elohim la'or yoim, he's calling names. This is the next force, which is Gemini, the month where we receive the Torah. This is smell. Vayikra Elohim la'or yoim, v'lachoshech kor alayla, he calls names to these different ones. Vayerev vayevoker yom echad, then we have one day of creation. This was one cycle because there was one saying, there was one sphere that came out of here and revealed itself. And we see here that tzedek is related to chachma, and obviously these are the combinations that we are making based on certain assumptions. If we change the assumptions, all this is going to change. And yet, under these assumptions, there's a relationship between chachma and Jupiter, revelation, and the two forces of the zodiac, the two signs. The next pasuk, Vayomer Elohim, this is another saying. This is represented by Tzere, by the Bina. What does the Bina do? She separates into two dots. Yehi rakia b'toch hamayim. Let there be a firmament within the water. Vehi mavdil b'mayim l'mayim. It's going to distinguish between the different types of waters. And so the dots are turning into two, like the Tzere. Vayas Elohim, this is the first time we have it. He's going to do something. What is doing? The elements. The three elements represent doing. We're going to have three doings. This doing is the doing of the fire. Vayas Elohim Erekia. He made the firmament. What is the firmament? Shamayim, fire and water. And so there was water. He's going to separate between the waters by creating a shamayim, by creating a fire in the water. So with the force of fire, he separates the waters. Vayavdel ben hamayim asher mitachas l'rekia, the water that's under the firmament, ben hamayim asher la'al rekia, the water that's above the firmament, vayikan. The next pasuk, Vayikra Elohim, again he's calling a name. This is the letter Ches, represents Cancer, represents eating. And here he calls the name for the Shemayim, Vayerev vayevoker yom sheni. This is the second day. The next pasuk, Vayomer Elohim. Now who is saying, this is the Segel, the mid of Chesed. Kindness is speaking. Yakov yamayim asher mitachas hashemayim amokem echad v'seroi hayaboshe. Let's gather the waters and unite them to one place, and then the dry land will be seen. Vayikra Elohim leyaboshe eretz. Now there's another Elohim comes, that's the letter Tes, which is Leo, represents speech. Oh, the other one was eating, now speech. Vayikra Elohim leyaboshe eretz, ilemikva mayim koreyamim. He calls the dry land earth. He calls the waters seas, oceans. Vayar Elohim, now we have another seeing. Who's seeing this time? This time it's the left eye that's seeing, that's madim. Vayar Elohim kitov. He sees it's good. Mars. The next pasuk, Vayomer Elohim. Who is talking? The Shva, the attribute of Gvura. Let there be grass, let the earth give out grass. Let it give out trees, that they should release seed, and then they will recreate themselves. This happened. It gave grass, grass that can plant other grass, lemineu, and trees that can create fruits, that have their seed, that can recreate those fruits. Vayar Elohim kitoiv. Who saw? The sun, the letter Daled, which represents the right nostril. The next one, Vayomer Elohim, Yihim ha'oretz b'rekei hashamayim, let there be stars, planets, let there be lights that will distinguish, lahavdil ben hayom ben halayla, distinguish between the day and the night. This is the cholim, the tiferes. He created those lights. Vayas Elohim, now he's doing again. Who is doing? The aleph, the ruach, the power of ear, spirit. He made shnei ma'oris hagdolim, two big lights. The sun, the moon, and all the stars. Vayiten osem Elohim. He gave them, which force gave them? The letter Yud, Virgo, which represents the stomach. He gave them Berkei Shemayim L'Hor Ha'La'aretz, V'limshel Bayomi B'Layla L'Havdil Ben Ori Ben HaChoshech. They should be in charge and rule over the day and the night, and distinguish between the darkness and the light. Vayar Elohim Kitoiv. Who saw? Saturn, the right ear. This is the fourth day. The next pasuk, Vayomer Elohim, who is saying the melupim, the netzach, the power of sustainability. It says, Yishu to Amayim sheretz nefesh chayo v'oif yof v'aloretz apnei rikei shemayim. Let there be all kinds of shrotzim. Shrotzim are creatures that reproduce themselves in the water, and those who fly in the air. And they should cause reproduction in a way that they constantly are becoming more and more. This is from the power of sustainability, the power of Netzach. Vayivra Elohim, he created with which force? With the force of Maznaim, of Libra. Which represents the gallbladder. Esataninim agdoilim, the big fish. All types of water creatures and birds with wings. Vayar Elohim kitoiv, he saw it was good. Who saw? Through the force of Venus. The letter Pei, which represents the left ear. He blessed the animals, he blessed these creatures. Who blessed them? What power? Through what power did the blessing come? Through Akraf, Scorpio, the spleen. He blessed the forces within the waters that create all these different species, and he gave them the power to reproduce. He blessed them, Lemer, Pruirvu Mila Samaim, reproduce and fill the waters, Bayamim, in all the seas. Ba'oif Yerev Baretz, let the creatures who can fly become multiplied on the earth. And then there was the fifth day. The next pasuk, Vayemer lehim, who is saying the sphere of Hoid, the vowel of Chirik. What is it saying? Let there come creatures of the land. Vayaselim. Now we have the third one, the third doing. This one is the letter Mem for water. He did all the animals, the wild animals, the tamed animals, and all of the creatures that mingle on the earth. He saw it was good. Who saw? Mercury, which represents the left nostril. The next pasuk, Vayomer Elohim, represents the shurik, the yesoid. He said, Nasa Adam b'tzamenu k'dmesenu, the yesoid that collects from all the midas. It said, let's create together something. Let's create someone that has all our forms, all our expressions. They will be able to rule over the fish and over the birds, and all the animals, and all the creatures who roam the earth. And so through the power of the Yesod, he said, let's make a man. So a man represents the mid of the Yesod. This is why when a man is accurate, we call him a tzaddik. A tzaddik represents the mid of Yesod, tzaddik Yesod Olam. But when a man is accurate, he represents accurately the intelligence that desired us. Because we are an expression of this midah. God created man in his image. This one is the Ois Samach, which represents Sagittarius, the right kidney. B'tzelem Elohim bara Oiso, he created him in the form of God. This one is Ayin, represents Capricorn, the left kidney. So the right kidney and the left kidney is Vayiver Lemus Adam B'tzelem, he created him in his form. And the left kidney is B'tzelem Elohim bara Oiso, he created him in the form of the divine. Zachar Nekev Barasim, he created them male and female. The next pasuk says, Vayvar Chosem Elohim, he blessed them. Who blessed? Through which force is the blessing coming? Through the letter Tzaddik, which represents Aquarius, the right foot, the right leg. Vayomer Elohim, and he says to them, this is within the blessing, who is saying? The Ois Kuf, which represents Pisces, the left leg. So this is like God walking. So his right leg and his left leg say, you now multiply so that I can walk through the generations of humanity. If humanity will not multiply, the divine cannot continue going. And so the divine is going through our ability to reproduce. This is what's keeping the divine going. This is how the tree of life is still alive after all this time. It's that the legs of the divine, which are the blessing of humans multiplying, are taking us from generation to generation. And so he says, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and capture it and master over the fish of the sea and the birds of the heaven and all the animals around the earth. The next pasuk is Chaftez, Vayomer Elohim, who is saying? The last of the spheres, the Malchus. She says, I gave you all the grass that can create seed that's on the earth. All the trees. It has fruits that have seeds in them, and you can replant them and get more. This is what you can eat. I'm giving you a continued source of sustenance by creating seed within the plants so that they can recreate those plants. And to all the animals, I gave grass to eat. This is before the animals became violent and ate each other. This was a time where the plants were the sustenance for the creatures, for the animals and for the humans. Vayar Elohim, now he sees, who sees the power of the moon, which is the peh, the mouth. It sees everything that it did is very good. It came evening and the morning, and it was the sixth day. And so this was the process of creation where the 32 divinities were revealed. And this is the beginning of the Torah. The whole Torah, all the mitzvahs, all the instructions, all the intentions, all the desires, all the svarim, all the Kabbalistic svarim, all the non-Kabbalistic svarim, the pshat, the Gemara, the halacha, the Shulchan Aruch, it was all written to protect these entities. It has no other agenda. It has no other purpose. To the extent that it manages to do so, it's holy and it's wonderful. To the extent that it violates these principles, it violates these divinities, it violates these emanations, it is impure and it is dangerous. And this is what everyone was arguing over. This is why people were ready to die for their beliefs, because if they don't have the right beliefs, they are already dead. Not only are they dead, but as long as they're alive, they're causing themselves trouble, because these forces are alive, they are real. They understand what we're saying better than we understand what we're saying. And the consequences are always real, because life is alive. Life is listening to itself. Life decides how to be based on what is, based on what we make it be. And so therefore, Avraham Avinu wanted us to know this truth. Otherwise, we'll be infested by demons in order to be controlled. Or we'll be infested by demons because we are trying to make ourselves feel good, but we don't understand that we are violating some principles that are not going to feel good once they're violated. And so as long as this wisdom was known and was lived, we had a temple, we had a place where we can come closer to the divine. We had people who understood the language of the divine. We had ways of bringing the divine forces back into balance. But then we lost the house, which also means we lost the body. We lost the ability to be us. We lost the ability to know right from wrong. We lost the ability to identify the demons, until came a stupid generation like ours that even denies that there's such a thing, that doesn't understand the danger that they face as they're interacting with life. This is because year after year, humanity has deteriorated until they've really forgotten their nature, until they've really forgotten that there is what to remember, until intelligent people really believe that whoever created them wasn't intelligent. And so we have to sanctify his name. We have to find the truth that can glorify what already is, because his demonstration is done. We are it. We are his demonstration. Now we have to learn how to read this demonstration in order to know how to be this demonstration. And this is the purpose of the Torah. This is the purpose of any religion if it's trying to do anything. And this is the language that has been lost from the world. In the ancient world, no one was so disconnected from these forces that they would deny them. There were different arguments about how to worship them and the right approach and the right intention, but no one would deny the importance of understanding and knowing what we are interacting with. This is what needs to awaken in order for us to be liberated. And when all will know, which is always, he is one, nothing will change that. You're the same one. But the movement will be accurate to the one that is. The movement will be a revelation of his kindness, a revelation of his power, a revelation of his desire to bring kindness and to bring good and to bring pleasure upon the ones that he's created. But the accurate type of pleasure, the real type of pleasure, the permanent type of pleasure, not the pleasure that causes conflict with anything that already is. And so this is the revelation of his name. This is what we are looking forward to. May it happen now.